Speaking of no apologies, I know you have some opinions on this.
I have
the Drew Brees.
Drew.
Yeah. I will tell you what. I know so little about football, correct?
Yes.
So little that when I heard this, I said he is a player of football.
He is a quarterback, one of the best in the league. He's been around forever.
Well, okay.
Forever.
If you say so.
Forever.
You're my John Oliver source.
telling you, yeah.
I just don't want to be Michael Brown, where I go out and don't know that Michael Brown committed a crime. So if I say Drew Brees plays in the NFL,
correct,
and he's very good,
yes,
that will be accurate.
That will suffice.
Don't HBO produce me now.
No.
Okay. So this is a story where he took a stand and he said that he would never support kneeling or disrespecting the flag, and then he had to apologize and continue apologizing for it. Let me read this actual quote, and then I do want to go to you because, of course, you follow this more than I do because you play football. Drew Brees, he said, this was his quote, and I do have some thoughts on it, but really more so the backlash. I don't care so much about Donald Trump saying he shouldn't apologize and then the response, because you can never know at that point, past the initial response, what is a genuine apology versus, I still want to have a career.
Exactly.
So let's address the initial comments from Drew Brees, and if there's anything controversial about that, and where it puts us as Americans, because the reaction, I think, when we talk about toxicity, I don't think you can get much worse than reacting to Drew Brees or Terry Crews, which we'll get into this way.
Yeah, right.
His quote was, let me just tell what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II, one in the Army and one in the Marine Corps, both risking their lives to protect our country, to try and make our country and this world a better place. So every time I stand with my hand over my heart looking at that flag and singing the national anthem, that's what I think about. And in many cases, that brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movement of the 60s, and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it is not. We still have a long way to go, but I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is that it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together, we can all do better, and we are all a part of the solution. That right now has been met with derision as white supremacy, for which he had to apologize. And again, not only the end where he talks about the civil rights movement, not only the end where he says we have a long way to go, but when he talks about people who fought for our country in the military, we have people of all different races and creeds in the military, by the way. This couldn't be a more unifying statement. Short of saying defund the police, kneeling and apologizing for your whiteness, you can't get a more tactful statement than this. God, that, even just going back in Barack Obama's era, would be positively presidential. And like I said before, when you shame people like a Drew Brees exclusively because of his race, don't be surprised if people watching who are reasonable, and they go, well, hold on a second, that seemed like a really fair, accurate statement, and one that was calling for unity and progress, and you demean him because he's white? We should be ashamed because we're white? No. And there's a rebound effect, and then you'll have more white pride activists. The idea of white pride is just as immoral as the idea of black shame, because your race is not what defines your character as a human being. Your actions do. And you know what? I'm pretty impressed with Drew Brees' actions until he apologized.
Well, the rage mob came calling, right? And what do you do when the rage mob comes calling? Well, in most people's cases, they tend to apologize. They look at their career and say, well, I'd like to still be employed. I make $25 million or $27 million a year as Drew Brees, plus whatever endorsements he gets. All the endorsements are gone if he's persona non grata, right? He can't do anything else but apologize. If you are Steven Crowder, you do an entire show not apologizing.
Right. Well, what do you expect when you
that was a better way to handle it.
I've seen so many calls. We need white allies to stand up.
What do
you do at this point? It's like you're moving and you invite a friend over and say, hey, I need your help moving this couch. Could you grab that end there and you take the top, I'll take the bottom, pivot. Hey, screw your mama, she's a whore. I don't want your help. What are you letting go of the couch? It fell on my foot.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, people in the black community needed to stand up and say, no, this is not the fight. We're not going to do like what we do to Donald Trump, where we only listen to like 13 seconds of what he actually said and not the entire context of what he's saying. We just covered that just a second ago. That's what we do every single time. And so what really bothered me was the tweet LeBron James sent. And LeBron James has inserted himself into every social issue that this country has right now, thinking that he's this expert, right?
And Space Jam.
He may imagine how much more often he would tweet about it between EPO and HGH sessions.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, you really still think it's about the flag? This has never been about the flag. Right. And so that was one of the comments that he made in his tweet. And he went on to say some other stuff. And he's like, I can't believe it. Wow, man. You still think it's about the flag. And I'm like, you don't understand that every person who told you they were offended said this is about the flag. You are doing something that is offensive to us with regards to the flag.
And by the way, LeBron James, can you be any more transparent? You're one of the people, you abandoned Cleveland who desperately needed anything twice for the Benjamins. Okay, so when I say, it's a lot in the community. Yeah. For you, it's not about the city. It's not about rebuilding it. I get that you do some nice community outreach and philanthropy on the side. You abandoned and broke their heart twice. You don't get to tell someone exclusively because he's white that he can't discuss honoring the flag.
And what else does Cleveland have? Drew Carey?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The guy was a middler until he had a show.
Yeah. Well, and he said nothing wrong here. And so what we're going to see now is more people kneeling during the national anthem. Again, and still not taking into account the feelings of all the people. And this is the thing, again, that bothers me about this. This is what you asked us, black community. This is what you're asking white community who you don't think understands your plight to do.
And this is why,
this
is why the average white American will not listen to any of your policing solutions, being the activist groups, because now you're walking it back saying, well, we don't really want to completely disband the police. So that's what they're talking about in Minneapolis. They say, well, now we just want to defund a portion of it and put it towards government housing and social workers. We go, hold on a second. I think that's not where it's going to stop. And you want to entirely disband police. And I don't really trust you because you said you wanted white allies. And then you took a steaming hot corn-infested dump on Drew Brees. We even have the players, other black players, this is from the New York Post, saying that do you think they accepted his apology or not? Spoiler alert, you already know. No. Of course they didn't accept his apology. That's why you don't apologize for something that you do when it's not wrong. And we're going to get to Manny, the art critic, in a second, and I would like to see if we have some chats. But this is something, people often wondered what happened with Donald Trump, how he got elected. And that was unfortunately that was a good example of there being a chasm between what the media was portraying and what everyday Americans were experiencing. But this can be an example of something where I talk about a genuine worry of more racism. There's a real when you talk about people who feel unheard, right? And I understand that. And I understand that in this country, black people have been marginalized. So have Italians. So have Jews. So have the Irish. And apparently now transgenders because they can't relieve themselves in any department store restroom of their choice. I don't know your plight, but I'm trying to relate and be a good ally. You tell me what to do. I'll kneel in your pile. But, okay, let me give you an example. We talk about kneeling in the NFL, okay? Kneeling in basketball. Predominantly black, right, in most of these sports. Great, good. I have no problem with that, by the way. I think the best athlete should get the job. As a general rule, jump higher and you run faster, black people. Good for you. Okay, I have no problem saying this. There's a film about it. White men can't jump. I understand it. Woody Harrelson, probably not the best example, but
it's true.
I think you were stacking the decks against white guys, but I do understand that the point remains the same. But you're gonna have kids tuning in. Well, we're talking about people who are unheard and marginalized, tuning in to watch a football game, watch a basketball game, and they're going to watch a multitude of black players kneeling and not respecting the country in which they've been raised. Now, let me paint for you a very real scenario while they're demanding that white people kneel effectively at the threat of violence right now in these protests. I won't say protests, riots across the country. Scenario: a white male from a trailer park, no dad, abusive household, maybe a crack baby. He attempts to stay on the straight and narrow and make something of himself. And you have people at CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, and every single major leftist publication and Reddit moderators telling white people that their point of view comes from a place of privilege and they can't understand and they need to listen to the unheard. And this crack baby in a trailer park who is obeying the law sees people breaking the law, burning down streets, being afforded luxuries and treatment that would never be granted to him as a white person in a trailer park with the deck stacked against him, and of course seeing people who are actually espousing their views from a true place of privilege with multi-million-dollar contracts telling him that he just can't understand because he's privileged as a white guy. That chasm between the message, the propaganda that is being pushed right now, and the reality for many Americans out there. Look at the overall median salary in this country. That means there are a lot of white Americans who are still very poor. That is when people don't feel heard, and that is when there's a rebound effect, there's a reaction to the action that you've taken, and you will see those kids grow up in resentment and become more racist. The last thing that the DNC should do, that Black Lives Matter should do, that CNN, that ABC, NBC, CBS should do, or that we should do, is say, hey, you see all this rioting, burning, looting, and kneeling with multi-million-dollar contracts? Just remember, black people. And just remember, you kneel because white people. That's the worst way you could handle any of this. And it's not an outlier, it's policy from today's left. And I will say it genuinely terrifies me